The fifth and final woe is found in Habakkuk 2:18 to 20, and it deals with the sin of idolatry. Look at verse 19. God says, "Woe to him who says to wood, 'Come to life,' or to lifeless stone, 'Wake up.' Can it give guidance? It is covered with gold and silver. There's no breath in it." The sin here is trusting something other than God to direct your life. Habakkuk has addressed the issue of idolatry several times in this book. In chapter 1, verse 11, he called the Babylonians guilty men whose own strength is their God. In chapter 1, verse 16, he says that Babylon sacrifices to his net and burns incense to his dragnet. The Babylonians were idolaters who trusted in their own strength and their own means rather than trusting God. Idolatry doesn't have to mean bowing down to a statue. Anytime you trust something other than God to direct your life, you are committing the sin of idolatry. What is God's judgment for those who trust something or anything other than Him to guide or direct their lives? You will be deceived and disappointed. Look at verse 18. God says, "Of what value is an idol, since a man has carved it, or an image that teaches lies? For he who makes it trusts in his own creation. He makes idols that cannot speak. An idol has no value. It cannot speak. It cannot guide you. It's a false god that only teaches lies. Those who trust in idols are deceived and will ultimately be disappointed." Verse 20 provides the contrast to the lifeless idols. "But the Lord is in his holy temple. Let all the earth be silent before him." God is in his temple. He is holy. He is majestic. Cease all your activity and be silent before him. Cease all your endless striving for greater wealth, security, power, and pleasure. Be silent before him. Turn away from your worthless idols and bow before the Lord in heaven, who alone can fill your deepest longings and satisfy your soul. Man's way is to gain the whole world and lose your soul. God's way is to lose your soul for Christ in order that you may find it. Lose it all for Him, and God will restore your soul. You lose your life for Christ by serving God instead of serving yourself. How do we serve God instead of self? Let's look at the contrast between God's way and man's way. You serve God instead of self by giving rather than stealing. Ephesians 4:28. He who has been stealing must steal no longer, but must work doing something useful with his own hands, that he may have something to share with those in need. You serve God instead of self by integrity rather than injustice. Proverbs 10, verse 9. The man of integrity walks securely, but he who takes crooked paths will be found out. You serve God instead of self by worshipping the living God rather than idols. 1 Thessalonians 1 verse 9. They tell how you turn to God from idols to serve the living and true God. Habakkuk wondered if God was fair. God shared with Habakkuk that Babylon would lose it all because Babylon was seeking to build an empire for itself rather than seeking to serve God. Let's stand in silence before an awesome God and rededicate our lives to serve Him and Him alone. Be blessed.